There's cat hair all over my microphone. That's because Mr. Crowley's starting a podcast, and Dreamer likes to rub on everything. Channel. I am Sarah Scharnweber, and this is my channel. So I am here for Project Authortube 2021, which is a project that Tamara Woods put together to kind of open Nanowrimo to do a kind of Preptober collab thing. So I am honored to be here. Thank you, Tamara, and thank you to everyone else who is doing this for making it so that I'm part of a collab. Don't forget, the playlist is down below. You should go check that out, but after you've watched this video, because this video is real good. Okay, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about cheating on Nanowrimo and how to actually complete Nanowrimo or do better at Nanowrimo than you planned on without cheating. So the very first thing I saw people talking about doing, which was cheating on Nanowrimo back in like 2001 or so when I very first started doing the program, was to not use contractions. And there's like 100 reasons that that's terrible fucking advice. Number one being, people don't talk that way. People don't think that way. That's not the way that a story would read. Number two, you don't really gain that many words doing that. Some of those words don't even turn into one word, like can't turns into cannot, which is one word. So some of those words don't even give you anything, and quite frankly, you're probably spending more brain power and time switching those words over to 2 words than it would be for you to just write more words. If you plan on doing anything else with this story, if you plan on going further with it, when you go back to edit it, you're going to be so pissed off at NaNoWriMo U. NaNoWriMo U is going to be your worst enemy, because you're going to have to then change all of your non-contractions into contractions, because people don't read stories that don't have contractions. Might someone read it? Sure, but chances are you're going to have a harder time switching back than you would have if you just focused more or took some of these other tips and got yourself more words. The second thing I've seen a lot of people do, and this is probably the second thing I saw people talking about doing, was to start early. We all know people who start day one and they have 30,000 words, and then they write like 100 words a day, which doesn't make any sense, and we all know that that's kind of bullshit. But the thing is that it doesn't matter. What matters is what you're doing. And if you're the kind of person who cheating is going to haunt you no matter how you do it or when you do it, then chances are that you're just not going to want to do that. You're probably going to remember that time that you cheated on NaNoWriMo, and so it's really not worth it. Realistically, the reason we shouldn't be cheating is because cheating is wrong on a base level, and, you know, blah, 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 what's right and wrong, blah, blah, blah. We all know those things. We know that cheating is wrong, but it also seems very strange to cheat to win NaNoWriMo. The thing I hear most people say that they get out of NaNoWriMo that they think is like the best, Scrivener. And I'm sure there's other ways to get a discount on Scrivener that are probably much easier than writing 50,000 words. And quite frankly, if you're not willing to try to write those words, then you should just go use one of the other deals you can find. I'm sure there are other deals on Scrivener. Ask for it for a gift for a holiday or something. That is not the best way to get Scrivener. It really isn't. It just seems a little excessive. I personally don't use Scrivener. I do know people who do. In fact, most of my friends really enjoy it. But I would bet you that most people who have it would say that if they weren't going to do NaNoWriMo anyway, it wouldn't be worth it. It's not that expensive to begin with. So just, if that's the whole reason you're cheating at NaNoWriMo, I recommend that you come up with a different way to get your Scrivener. The next thing I've seen people say is just to write basically nonsense, just to like journal or write gibberish or whatever it might be. I've seen people do that. I've also seen people count every word they write, whether it be an email or a memo for their work, you know, whatever, just counting all of those words. And sure, you can do those things, but you know that that's not really what this is. The next thing people do is just outright lie. Just upload a book you wrote before. Upload a collection of words that you have in a document from whatever. It doesn't even have to make sense. It doesn't have to be in any particular order. The counter literally only counts words. Another thing I've seen people do with NaNoWriMo is to claim that they're doing a bunch of work so that they feel like they're part of a community, but in actuality, they're not trying at all, and they're pretending that they're writing. This is the weirdest one to me, because I would imagine there are 1,000 communities that are welcoming that require less. I don't know, that just require less. Like, I can't imagine wanting to be friends with a bunch of writers if I didn't have an interest in being a writer. It seems so bizarre to me. But, I mean, I suppose whatever floats your boat. It seems like a very strange way to cheat, and I'm not quite sure why one would do that, but I would recommend you don't do that because it's weird. Another thing is people milking an aesthetic rather than actually doing their writing. You see people who have pictures of them writing on their Instagram that when you really look at them, you realize that they took 4 hours to set up this picture of them writing. Like, how much writing did they get done? It's not really cheating, but a lot of times it goes hand in hand with cheating, because if you're spending all of this time building this aesthetic and this personality and this kind of thing for your social media, it is unlikely that you're getting all your words in. And if you are, more power to you. Maybe I'm the idiot. But I feel like there's a lot of people who spend more time on aesthetic than they spend on their writing. Problem with things like that is that the more behind you get, the more discouraging it can become, and the worse it can become to catch up. If you're spending your time doing these other supplemental things, you might find that you've actually just buried yourself and caused yourself to have a worse problem, which then might result in you cheating if you hadn't planned on it. One of the more recent things that I've seen people doing that is cheating is to give characters really long full names, like Antonio L. Biatch Yo Mama Jr. the Fourth, and just like writing it out like that every single time you interact with that character, or every time that character speaks. Well, yeah, that is a lot of words, but you also look like an asshole, and that's another one of those ones where when you go back to edit it, if you do complete this, then you're going to be really frustrated with having done that. So you're better off just figuring out a better way to write the words. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about some NaNoWriMo hacks, some things you can do that actually might make your NaNoWriMo experience better. My number one NaNoWriMo hack is to make friends all over. Make friends in every corner of the world, so that way, when you need a writing buddy at 3 a.m., you have someone you know who is actually awake at that time. Make friends on NaNoWriMo. Use the website, use Twitter, use Authortube, use whatever you can to make friends who write, so that you can get the support you need no matter what time it is. We've all had a day where we are the worst writer ever and it's 3 a.m. and none of our local friends or semi-local friends are conscious because it's the middle of the night, but we're desperate for a little bit of support. Having a friend who lives halfway across the world might help you. Just remember though that that does mean that you do also have to offer them support when they need it. Part of the importance of having a support system is that they also need to get support from you. So don't forget that part. I know it's easy to forget. I know sometimes we get wrapped up in our own shit, but letting that ruin your relationships will haunt you down the road. All right, and this hack might come across as a little bit shocking from me, but one of the ways you can actually speed up your NaNoWriMo if you want to make sure you get your words rather than having to cheat about it is to write an outline. While that doesn't really work for me, and I know a handful of other people that doesn't work for, most people do okay with a rough outline. Giving it a shot isn't the worst idea in the world. And here's the really cool thing about an outline. You're the only one who knows that outline's there. But just keep in mind that nobody requires that you follow an outline, so writing one isn't going to hurt you. Another NaNoWriMo hack would be to do that story you've been thinking about forever. That story that's been kind of festering in there. So what if you started something else a month ago? You can still do that story that's been itching in the back of your head for NaNoWriMo. It might move faster. And in fact, if it's been baking in the back of your head for a while, the urgency at which we tend to write during NaNoWriMo might be the perfect way to go about it. Another thing, and this is probably one of the most common recommendations, is to mark your your accomplishments with rewards of some kind, whether it be watching a show you like, having a dessert you like, spending an afternoon playing video games, getting a Zoom meeting together to meet with a bunch of people you haven't seen in a long time. Whatever that reward is, give yourself some rewards. If you feel that there is a payoff coming, a lot of people will move faster and will aim harder for that thing. So giving yourself the opportunity to see if that'll work for you is definitely worthwhile. If you know it won't work, just like everything else here, don't do it. But if you don't know and you give it a shot, worst case scenario, you still haven't found what you want at the end of that, but you know what didn't work. Another thing that might work for you would be to try to get in with different kinds of groups of writers. It might seem reasonable that you want to be with sci-fi writers because you're a sci-fi writer, but that actually might be surprisingly untrue. You may find that spending time with writers who don't write the same genre as you or don't have the same writing style as you actually can be very empowering for a number of reasons, including the fact that sometimes just talking about how you get to do what you do with other writers who do the things different is sometimes really good for helping your brain kind of wrap around what you're doing and sometimes get past that and into what you needed to do with your story. Another thing, and this is recommended by the Nanowrimo website, so if you have not seen the Nanowrimo website, I would recommend checking it out. But another thing is to try a live write-in. They do have lots of live write-ins in lots of communities that are in person. Last year, obviously, it was not nearly as common, but I believe this year they'll be able to do a lot more of those, especially in communities where things are kind of under control or there are already things put into place to decide who can and cannot go places. But if safety is not a concern in your community, a live in-person write-in might be exactly what you need to help fuel you to keep going. Another thing, and this has been covered recently on the internet quite a little bit, is to write in Comic Sans. Apparently something about writing in Comic Sans liberates your brain, for lack of a better way of putting it, and might make it so that it's easier for you to write those words that might seem difficult at the moment. So try writing in Comic Sans. If that doesn't work, then I also like to change fonts just because I really enjoy fonts. I find that also having a rotating desktop background that I can look at on and off does help as well. I have a whole folder full of desktop backgrounds that kind of tingle that little creative part in my brain, and I just let them rotate. And if I don't like the one I'm looking at, I rotate it out manually and look at that. And that kind of leads into the next thing, which is to disconnect from your story and daydream. Allow yourself to daydream. You don't have to daydream about your story for it to click in place. And the last thing I'll recommend to you is a little looser, a little easier for everyone to do, but probably so simple that some people didn't think of it, which is just go around the internet looking at writing stuff. Look at recommendations to help get your mind into writing. Look at things that people recommend for helping you to get a story finished. Look at the different ways that different authors get writing. Those kinds of things can be very inspiring. And even if you don't know how it's affecting you, you might find that you watch a couple of interviews with authors that you find inspiring, or you read a couple of articles and later that night you suddenly need to write because whatever it is that you had engaged with had triggered something. And just keep in mind that we're all kind of just letting it work the way it needs to work. Whether you write every single day, whether you write on and off, or once in a while sit down and write a whole story, whatever kind of writer you are, we're all just doing what works for us. And if it doesn't work for you, then you should abandon ship. If NaNoWriMo doesn't work for you, don't do NaNoWriMo. If pushing yourself to write 50,000 words in a month isn't going to do anything to help you get your writing done or to help you improve your writing, don't write 50,000 words in a month. It's that easy. Don't let some event that's supposed to be fun cause you to start doing these weird things like lying about how many words you wrote, when that's just not who you are or what you're doing. it's okay to not have NaNoWriMo work for you. Trying to force any person to fit into a box that they don't fit in is just going to make you both frustrated and exhausted. I think that's all I have. I hope you have a wonderful NaNoWriMo. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Preptober or October if you're not doing NaNoWriMo. I personally am not doing NaNoWriMo. I have a project that started beforehand and ends after, so I don't really have a choice. There just isn't time for NaNoWriMo with that project going on, but I will be around to encourage everyone. I will still be doing my writing vlogs, let you guys know how I'm doing on my writing. It's just not going to be part of NaNoWriMo. So have a wonderful week. Don't forget to check out the Project Authortube playlist, which I will try to link down below as soon as I find where it is. I think I have it. We'll see. But don't forget to check it out. Check out all of the videos that are on there. There's a whole bunch of us making videos about NaNoWriMo. If you have questions or concerns about the whole idea of NaNoWriMo, feel free to check those videos out. Also, don't forget to check out the nanowrimo.org website. That's their home, so that's a really good place to find out what they think about what they're doing and what they recommend with what they're doing. But don't forget that we are all individuals. We all do things a little bit different, and that's part of the reason that this is so much fun. So we'll see you guys all later. Don't forget to like and subscribe down below, and don't forget to check out the playlist. Bye. Like re-recording, cause recording it the first time wasn't exciting enough.